What about QB? You want to talk about QB or no?
Nah, fuck QBs.
Why fuck QB?
Nah, we'll talk about them at the end.
Okay.
It's August.
Yeah.
It's Marky Mark. It's fantasy football time, you know.
Fantasy football.
Time to start doing some drafts, you know. Time to start, you know, giving shit to your friends.
That's right.
Start fucking with people. Start taking the players they want and hoping they pick up some guys you don't want, so you can beat their ass and win some money. You know, it's fantasy football time. It's football time in general. It's very exciting, especially here in Texas, here in Dallas. We love football.
That's right.
We love our Cowboys.
Fucking right.
We love the sport itself, and you know we ready to get into it here on Sports Outpost. Talk a little bit of football. So when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys, there's already been some big news in training camp. James Washington, new slot receiver, the guy that was supposed to fill in for Cedric Wilson, is already hurt. He broke his foot, and he's out 4 to 6 weeks. So James Washington now missing the first part of the regular season does open up, though, some opportunity for the young rookie Jalen Tolbert. A lot of people are excited about Tolbert because of his size and athleticism. And I think it really bodes well for fantasy owners to, if you have a late round pick, late round flyer, maybe make a move and go after Tolbert or some other guys in the Cowboys offense that will get those targets that now won't be taken up by Gallup or James Washington at the start of the season. Tony Pollard wouldn't be a bad cop as well. And I think both those guys are going to see an increase in target shares, especially for the first few weeks of the season, just with kind of how the wide receiver room is right now in Dallas. Here in 2022 fantasy football, there's some definite sleepers this year, and those guys include at the top of the list for me, Gabriel Davis, wide receiver 2 in Buffalo. Cole Beasley's gone. Emmanuel Sanders is gone. So that's a lot of targets that's going to be missing from a pass-heavy offense. Josh Allen throws the ball. He throws it a lot. They can't really seem to find a way to get a running game going in Buffalo. So I think Gabriel Davis is a fantastic fantasy option and a guy you can definitely pick up in the 4th round or later. He had 64 targets last year alone, and he also led the league in fantasy points per reception. He averaged 3.06 fantasy points per reception last season, which was the best of any player in the NFL, and his targets are only going to go up. I wouldn't be surprised if they double from 64 to 130, and even if it's below that, he should still easily see 90 to 110 targets this season. And if it's anything like last year, it's going to be a lot of big plays. He's their explosive go-to guy. Stephon Diggs does the more all-around thing. So whenever you need a big play for your fantasy team, Gabriel Davis probably wouldn't be a bad option in 2022. Moving on to some other sleepers, some guys I like as far as running back goes. I think you can get a lot of good running backs in later rounds this year because I think a lot of people more than ever are going to be going for wide receivers earlier because you got guys like Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel. These are all guys that all of a sudden could go first round, and then there's 4 running backs that are getting pushed back to the later rounds. Right. And I think that's where you're going to see your Leonard Fournette, who isn't a bad pickup. I think he's a guy that's going to get a lot of touches in the offense. I know he had a problem with his weight this offseason. He gained like 15 pounds or something. But nonetheless, he was eating good, bro. Yeah. He was eating good. He was down there in Tampa eating good, eating the seafood, eating some cornbread.
Some New Orleans.
Oh yeah, they eating right. They eating that good seafood, man. Yeah. They got the cornbread. They got all that going on over there, man. That boy, he's probably drinking too all off season, but he's getting thrown.
And so he's fat.
He's fat, yeah. He's fat, but nonetheless, I think in training camps and preseason, I mean, you're working out and playing in like 95 plus in like major humidity. More likely than not, he'll burn off some of that weight back, and I think he'll be back to a pretty solid form this year, just as he was last year, as being the main back in that offense and Tom Brady's go-to check down. I think also Ezekiel Elliott is worth a later round pick. Not only because I'm a Cowboys fan, but also just because if you look at his numbers last year, they were not as bad as you might think. The stereotype around Zeke is he's washed, he's done, but in reality, I mean, 900 yards is not a bad season at all for any running back. And for like the first half of the season, he put up some pretty solid fantasy numbers, and he was fairly consistent throughout the whole year. He might have not been an RB1 anymore, maybe not even an RB2, but having Zeke at a flex is definitely not a bad spot to be in, and you definitely can probably get him 4th round or later fairly easily this season.
Yeah.
I think another guy that's interesting to look at to kind of see how they play with it, the only problem that I have with the Pittsburgh Steelers is their quarterback situation. But Chase Claypool, they're trying to find different ways to use him in the offense this year, similar to Brandon Ayuk in San Francisco. They're putting him in the slot, trying to hand the ball off to him more, get him some more opportunities in the short field instead of always pushing him the long routes. And I think he's going to clip off some of Deontay Johnson's targets this year and get a fair amount of his own. But I'd rather put him on the back burner and go for someone like Ayuk, just because with Deebo Samuel's new extension, he now has a stipulation that he needs to carry the ball less. That's the main problem he was having in San Francisco, is he felt like he was getting beat up because he's just getting the ball handed off to him, thrown to him. Now Ayuk's going to pick up some of those touches. He's probably going to get thrown into some of those receiver running plays. And I think Brandon Ayuk definitely has a chance to build upon what he did to end last season and have a fairly big season here for San Francisco in 2022. And I think he's a guy that you can get 4th round or later. And he's definitely a guy that you could take a late round flyer on and really ride and have a really good season with in 2022.
Well, top 5 running backs that you got in the draft.
Top 5 running backs in 2022 fantasy football. I think the first guy you should look at, and a guy that I would like really badly to have on my team, is Joe Mixon. I think him and Aaron Jones are both due for massive years because they're just so highly efficient, highly used players. What Mixon did in the majority of his season, especially towards the end of the season for Cincinnati last year, was very special, and Aaron Jones has been doing it for 2-3 years now. And I don't think he's going to slow down at all. In fact, I think he might have an even better year now that Devontae Adams is gone. He might even get some more targets in the passing game from Aaron Rodgers, because now he's Aaron Rodgers' right-hand man as far as the stars on that team go. Then when you move into the 3rd spot following the Mixon and Aaron Jones, I think a guy like Austin Eckler is really must-have in a similar sense to those guys, but even more so because he catches so many balls. I think in PPR, Austin Eckler isn't a bad top 5 pick at all. He's rated right now as the RB2 coming into this season, and I think he might be due for an even better year than he had last year due to injuries, and I think maybe even a year better than his breakout year the year before that. And then going down that top 5 list, of course, to end it off, is a couple of absolute studs. Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor. These guys are workhorse backs. These are guys that are going to get the ball almost every play. You can count on them to get it short yardage, long yardage. It doesn't matter. They're home run hitters. They're touchdown getters. They're guys that are going to make plays and get you a lot of fantasy points. If you can get John Taylor, you can get Derrick Henry. I would recommend you do so, because those are the type of guys that will carry you to a fantasy championship if they stay healthy. This year, there's a lot of guys to watch out for that are going to probably have pretty poor seasons. Number 1 on my list to stay away from is Antonio Gibson for Washington, mainly because he's a good player. I like Antonio Gibson, but his main problem is his head coach really doesn't want to give him the ball as much as he should. For whatever reason, Ron Rivera tries to give the ball to McKissick, J.D. McKissick, that is, a lot in the passing game, or a lot of times even in the running game. The 3rd string running back gets totes there. Carson Wentz is there now. I'm sure they're going to try to push the passing game a lot now that they extended Terry McLaurin. And their offensive line's always lacking. Washington just isn't that great of a football team. And Antonio Gibson could be their best player if they let him loose, but they just have yet to do so, at least on a consistent basis. He's going to have his game or two, and maybe even 3 or 4, but I wouldn't expect much of him for a full fantasy year to get you anywhere or help you win a championship, especially at an RB spot. I would much rather have a guy like Zeke or like James Conner or even Chase Edmonds than I would have an Antonio Gibson this season, because I just think he's due for a really bad year. Another guy that's going to take a step back, I think, is Cordero Patterson. He had kind of like this Cinderella year last year where all of a sudden he was like one of the best running backs in fantasy football, even though he wears 84. Dude,
so weird.
Dude looks like a wide receiver, and he was like the 4th best running back in fantasy last year. And it was like the only like productive year of his whole career. Yeah. But the thing is now is Atlanta's got a new head coach. They got a new quarterback. They drafted a new running back. They're kind of moving in a new direction. They're moving, they want to see what these young guys can do because they're in the middle of a rebuild in Atlanta. So Cordero is a good veteran presence. He's definitely going to get his touches, but I would not count on him to be a top 10 running back in 2022. He's a guy I would stay away from drafting, and he's a guy that I would let your league mates draft and see how sad they get when he starts declining during the season, because surely he's going to not get as many touches as last year, and there's just no way he can replicate that production he had a season ago. Another guy I want to stay away from, actually guys, is anyone that's a running back for the San Francisco 49ers. I just think every year San Francisco, they change the starting running back every season. It's always a new rookie. They always get plugged in. Kyle Shanahan always running his offense weird like that. That's just how he likes to do it. He likes the fresh legs. I get it. It's smart. There's nothing wrong with it. But you also got a QB now starting there in Trey Lance that's going to run the ball a lot for a QB. And I just think that it's going to be a rotation of running backs in San Francisco per usual. And I think it's going to be hard to have anyone that gives you consistent fantasy value from that team at the RB position. So I would just steer clear of San Francisco running backs in general again in 2022. But he just don't want to. He's like, no, I don't want to do that.
So they're going to treat him as a running back.
No, they're going to treat him more as a receiver. He's still going to run the ball. He just made in his contract. He says not. It's like in half. Like he can't run as much. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. No more crazy Debo plays.
No more crazy Debo. Yeah, it was fucking us up last year.
Dude, it beat us. Dude, remember that touchdown run he had in the playoffs?
Yeah, dude.
Shit was fucked.
That was fucked.
He killed us by himself. That one
by
play.
himself.
Yeah.
And like who was their quarterback?
Jimmy.
Exactly. What did he do?
Yeah, nothing really. He just had the good defense and Debo.
And Debo, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what.
Man, San Fran ain't gonna make the playoffs this year. Hell no.
I don't think so.
Trey Lance ain't like that.
Trey Lance is not like that.
I think he might develop, but I don't think this year's the year.
Who do you think is gonna show out for rookie quarterbacks?
For rookie QBs this year? I don't know. I think if Desmond Ridder gets a chance in Atlanta, he could. Yeah. The problem is it's just like a really kind of down class for QBs this year.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's like the most...
Who was the first QB taken, dude? I can't even
remember. I don't even know.
Was it Kenny Pickett, the Steelers?
Yeah.
Was it that guy?
What were?
Or was it? I know he was one of them. I know Desmond Ridder got taken from. I just know Atlanta took him because I looked that up the other day because I was like, who's Atlanta's QB anymore? Now that Matt Ryan's gone, I was like, who the hell is there? They have Mariota too.
Yeah.
But nah, there ain't gonna be no Joe Burrows or Justin Herberts this season.
Yeah, well, I mean,
there ain't gonna be none of them.
Carolina QB situation.
Yeah.
Because either one can really get the starting role.
Yeah, they're pretty much the same, and they're drafted the same year, 1 and 2.
Yeah, exactly. So you
weird, yeah.
Oh, that's
I'd rather have Baker, to be honest.
Why?
Because I just think he's proven.
You don't trust Sam Darnold?
No, I don't. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Baker,
he always starts off like pretty good, and then like he just starts playing like shit.
But now he has like a decent.
Carolina could be solid if like McCaffrey didn't get hurt all the time.
Yeah.
Because they have like DJ Moore and shit.
Speaking of McCaffrey, is he a fantasy pick for you? Like, would you pick him up?
Nah, me personally, I'm done. Like, I was like, the way I look at it is like, who is going to draft Saquon and McCaffrey? Because whoever is just in for just a whole lot of sad news.
A shitty season.
Yeah. You're just in for a whole lot of sad news if you draft Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, because I feel like those dudes are going to guarantee get injured now.
So
I mean, it's been like, what, 2 straight years now those guys have had like just major injury after major injury. These guys are like, I mean, they can't do it anymore, dude. You could argue they should retire if it happens again. And they're like 24, 25 years old, and their bodies are already falling apart. Oh yeah, especially their legs. Both of them got the knees and the ankles. It's just a whole thing, dude.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, how would you rank like the drafts? Like, so your first pick, who would you choose? Like first pick, second pick, third pick. Like, I'm not saying what player, but like what positions do you pick?
Honestly, this year, I think for the first time, I am going to do wide receiver first round.
First round.
Because I think the wide receiver crop is that good.
Yeah.
I think, like I said earlier, like Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams, I mean, you can throw Stephon Diggs
Devontae
in there.
Adams, though, with the new
like,
QB.
all these guys, dude. Yeah, but, like, I didn't even know this. Devontae Adams and Derek Carr played together in college.
Yeah, they did in college, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
You think that old link is back? That old link?
It's got to be there a little bit, maybe. But I would just say, dude, like, Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, like, Debo. Justin Jefferson's insane. He might be the best. He might be the best of anyone.
This is a breakout year?
I think Justin Jefferson this year is probably due to be, like, top 5 wide receiver in fantasy easily, and I think there's an argument that you should take him like top 5 pick in the draft, fantasy draft.
So wide receivers first. What about second?
It'd be running back.
Okay.
And then I go QB.
I
hope the Cowboys crush it this year, and I hope I crush it in fantasy, and we'll have more fantasy talk coming on this channel very soon. Thank you. Peace.
Cheese.
Ooh.